You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Feel like who art ed?
We'll try to spice it.
Who art is Mr. Wood art ed me?
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted, Weekly Art History for All Ages. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and today we're looking at Walter de Maria, or Walter de Maria. I always want to say de Maria, but everyone who seems to know what they're talking about, I've seen it pronounced as de Maria. So, Walter and your family, I apologize. I might just go back and forth throughout the episode. But before we get into all of me embarrassing myself further, I think I want to introduce our guest today, Tim Bogatz from the Art of Ed University and host of Art Ed Radio. Thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you having me on. I'm going to say De Maria because that's how I've been saying it for, 25 years since I learned about this guy. So I'll probably stick with that.
And, I'm going to do a little bit more of a plug there because honestly, it would be embarrassing for you to be bragging about yourself. But I do have to say, if you're somehow not already listening to Art Ed Radio and you're an art teacher listening to this, you are missing out because honestly, Tim, your articles have been a valuable resource to me from like the early days when I would Google like, what are some fun facts about different artists and artworks? You put together a list of, like 150 diverse artists. This was years ago. You probably don't even remember it. But I have pulled that up so many times as I'm thinking, like, who else should I talk about on here? I've discovered a number of amazing artists through you personally and the Art of Ed community, and it is a tremendously valuable resource. Art Ed Radio, I've been listening since it was AOE Live years ago in the first incarnation, and I think that was you and Andrew back in the day. But
Yep.
Art Ed Radio is a fantastic resource for art teachers, and the Art of Ed University now has the Art Ed community, which is social media but healthy. So it is.
That's a great way to say it. So yeah, thank you for all the kind words. I really appreciate it, Kyle. That means a lot. And yeah, the Art of Ed community is fantastic. It's like, I don't know, Facebook for art teachers, but without all of the crap, like just people you want to talk to and things you want to talk about. If we can get more, we're over 5,000 art teachers in the community now. So just Google the Art of Ed community. Come join us. Great discussions happening there.
Yeah, you don't even need to Google it. Just check the links in the show notes. I'll put it in there.
Even better.
And
even better.
The wonderful thing is it's all verified art teachers who are all there to support each other. So it's a wonderful, healthy space that I am on probably more than any other social media. So
that's good to hear. That's good.
Now on to the actual topic, because once again, you brought me an artist that I was not familiar with. When we talked about what to do here, listeners, I'm going to tell you, I was shooting an email to Tim saying like, oh, can I drag you on the show again? And who would you like to talk about? And one of the suggestions was you could talk about how much you hate minimalism, except for Walter de Maria's lightning field. And I could not walk away from a statement like that. So I guess just to go right off the bat here, Walter de Maria is associated with minimalist movement, which you find generally to be objectionable. And can we just start by acknowledging our priors? I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of minimalism, but as I look at it, I feel like it's important as like, I think anytime we explore ideas, it's worth having some people take it to the outermost bounds, the logical conclusion of those ideas. Where do you find this to be objectionable?
Oh man, I was not prepared to rant about minimalism. I'll try and keep it short, but I would just say, I mean, it's boring, first of all. Like, no, I think it is an important part of the conversation. It's one of those things where you just kind of, art history is a conversation and a reaction between movements. And, it's kind of taking things to its logical endpoint. So I respect that. But at the same time, like there's not much appeal for me. Like Donald Judd can be interesting sometimes. But just stacking bricks or like lining up boards or whatever. I don't feel that there's a ton of thought that goes into it. A lot of the artists were not even creating their own work, which I understand was part of their concept. Like, I just design the plans, but as an artist, I don't even touch it, which is fine. But it doesn't appeal to me, and it doesn't appeal to anyone I know. When you're standing up in front of a classroom and trying to talk about how Carl Andre's bricks that are lined up in squares, like who does that appeal to? Like, who is that interesting for? And so I don't think that there's a lot of substance there. Like I said, it's part of the art history conversation, but I don't know that it necessarily adds a lot, and I don't know that it necessarily holds anyone's interest.
I think that's fair. I've always said that, art should tick different boxes and it needs to work on different levels. And I think the aesthetic appreciation should be a part of it. Like I like stuff that is joyful. I'm largely similarly situated in my feelings toward minimalism, but probably less militantly so than you are.
Also, can I add one thing? This may be controversial. You may want to edit this out. I don't know. Also, Ana Mendieta is one of my all-time favorite artists, and her husband was Carl Andre, famous minimalist, and he literally murdered her. Like he threw her out of a 34th story window, and was never convicted of it. And so I've always kind of held that against him for obvious reasons, and against minimalism as a whole. So that may be a little more than we need to get into, but that is something that kind of affects my opinion as well.
Hey, acknowledge your biases. I mean, if you are going to hold the entire movement to be contemptible because of the bad actions of a single bad actor, I'm not going to say fair, but I get it.
No, it's probably not fair, but I can't disentangle that in my mind. And so, yeah, like I said, we'll just acknowledge that bias.
Well, I think the truth is we all have a hard time disentangling stuff. There's the classic love the art, hate the artists, and we all have to draw our lines in different places. I know for myself, I have been able to do an episode on Picasso, despite the fact that he's had some baggage in his biography, because some of his art, like I did the episode on Guernica, that to me isn't a reflection of the worst parts of Picasso. Whereas I'm 5 years into this. I still have not talked about Gauguin for an episode, other than to say I'm not going to talk about Gauguin. He knows
totally
why.
Fair. Totally fair.
Like his work was about his worst impulses, and for me, that's where I draw the line. If the work is reflection of the flaws of the human being, I have a hard time. But some people just like, once a little bit of rot gets in there, it gets hard to work past. I get that.
Well, okay, so let me ask you that. I don't mean to derail this episode already, but like, what if, these, horrific actions are taken by an artist, and then everyone in their circle, everyone around him, all of the minimalists around Carl Andre continue to support him after these things happen? Like, can you excuse those things? Like, I don't know. It goes a lot deeper for me. When you think about that, and like I said, it may be drawing too many lines between the actions and the work, and it's probably more healthy to separate those things. But I think it is something that you want to consider. Like, are you supporting people who are enabling terrible things? And there's a lot that we don't have the answer to when we think about those things, but those are thoughts that continually go through my mind.
No, and I get that. And I think it's important to have that thought and have that conversation. I truthfully don't have a resolution on that. I'm not going to pretend that I've got that all sorted out, other than to say that, like, when it comes to how complicit the circle of friends and acquaintances are, I think we can both recognize it gets complicated. Like, like I personally, I think if somebody in my circle of friends, committed a horrible, vicious, violent act like that, even short of murder, like, that person's not in my circle of friends anymore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty comfortable saying that. But like, if they're not convicted and they are, a acquaintance that through work, and there's a power dynamic at play there where your career could be hurt because the dealers are going to turn their back on you if you turn their back on them, I'm not going to say it's okay, but I can also understand the pressure that people might be in. And then it becomes like, well, how much does one bad act make you a total outcast from society? And I'm not talking about, the murderer, because that's obviously a single bad act that should make you a complete outcast and you should be imprisoned and, keep everybody safe from that person. I'm talking about the bad act of not fully shunning the person who has committed an atrocity. Like, how much does that carry over, and should that carry over, and how much should those people be held accountable? It's dicey, and it's probably a case by case, and you got to look at what they did and how they knew and what they knew and how they supported or didn't support or where they were quiet and stuff like that. And as much as this is an art history show, I'm going to be honest, I don't know that history. So
yeah, no, it's a very sticky situation, all things considered. And also, I didn't mean to turn this into a philosophical discussion of the worst acts that people can do. So if you just want to get back to like, hey, lightning is cool, let's talk about this artwork. We can do that as well.
Lightning is cool, but it has also been known to create some bad acts for a number of people. So it's maybe not getting off clean either. But we are going to get back to the original topic. Hopefully people find some benefit in thinking about these philosophical things. But I'm also going to go back to Walter de Maria. He was born October 1st, 1935 in Albany, California. One of the things I find really interesting we always see like, oh, from an early age, they really liked art. But for him, yes, visual art, but also the musical arts. He played drums, he played piano. He even was in an early incarnation of the Velvet Underground, which is pretty rad.
Ooh, I did not know this. That is exciting. That's cool.
Yeah. I guess they were like going by like the Primitives at that point. This was like 1965. So he briefly played drums in that group that, he's with Lou Reed and everything like that. But before that, he went to college in Berkeley. He studied history, then art, and then he moved to New York in 1960. And like I said, that's where he fell in with this circle of artists, musicians. He played with Lou Reed, John Cale, and he starts making some minimalist sculptures. Just to bring this back full circle, for listeners who were wondering why we were talking about minimalism so long, our subject today, Walter de Maria, was a part of the minimalist movement. So he began making these pieces in the 1960s. I love boxes for meaningless work. Like it pretty much sums up minimalism right there. But he had a little bit of, I would say there, a little bit of play, a little bit of humor to it, some thought behind all of this. But I think the thing that's most interesting is his work is a little bit minimalist, but it also seems to intersect with like the land art movement. And after a short break, we're going to get back to that as we talk about his lightning field, which is probably one of his biggest works. At least literally, it has to be one of his biggest works. Okay, so now we're back. My guest, Tim Bogatz, the host of Art Ed Radio from the Art of Education University. When we talked about this episode, you said Walter de Maria's lightning field is the one piece of minimalist art that you like. So can you just walk us through this field? What do you like about it? What's going on here? And why does this stand out to you?
Okay, well, first, let me say it's a little bit of hyperbole. There's probably 4 or 5 minimalist works I like, but I appreciate Walter de Maria and Lightning Field in particular because I think he's kind of stretching the boundaries of minimalism. There's a lot of tie-in with land art, and he's actually done another piece, just trying to figure out, I guess, the connections between, his art and nature. And so he's bringing minimalism out into nature with the lightning field, but also I think maybe the same year he started Lightning Field, he's got one called Earth Room, or like New York Earth Room. And basically he's got like 250 or 300 cubic yards of dirt. And he just fills like this entire loft with like 2 feet of dirt, but you can't interact with it all. You can't touch it. You can't walk on it. There's like glass that separates you. And he just wants you to think about how we bring the outdoors inside and how we bring our art and our other things out into nature as well. And so anyway, long story short, I appreciate this because it is sort of blurring those lines between minimalism and, like earth art or land art. And his lightning field just, it's very minimal, but it also takes up a huge space. So did you want to give the full description, or do you want me to talk about like how it's built, how it's put together?
Okay, well, so it's a bunch of poles. It's
bunch of poles just sticking straight up in the air.
Sticking straight up in the air in like the New Mexico desert. It's a rectangular grid of these posts that are on average something like 20 feet high. And I say on average because he was a very precise person who wanted the tops of them to all be aligned. Right?
Yes.
And since the ground is not going to be perfectly level, the post heights have to be different. And they're in this rectangle, all perfectly evenly spaced. And the rectangle itself is 1 mile by 1 kilometer.
Yes.
And I love that mix of units.
Right.
It's breaking my brain a little bit, but I absolutely love that. And I think the other thing for people to know about this, just to clarify, because you were initially talking about 2 works there, you talked about how there's the glass that separates us from the earth in the loft and everything like that. But But this piece is one that is intended for people to walk around and spend time in. And in fact,
Yes.
there is a small cabin that you can
there's a
stay
cabin you
in
can go stay.
because he wanted people to walk around and spend time in this space, but not too many people. They require you to make reservations. And I think you have to make, I get the sense you got to work hard to get these reservations because on the
Yeah.
website, it says like, reservations will open at midnight on February 1st, and it's first come, first serve, and sign up if you want to get a slot
Okay.
and all of that sort of stuff. They're a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit cagey about like the exact location. So you can't just like drive up there. Like you
Well,
got to
yeah,
plan
I've-
this in advance.
I've heard that you have to like drive and check in. Like if you are one of the few that get tickets, it's like waiting in the queue for like Ticketmaster. But if you actually get tickets, you have to drive to their offices and then you just abandon your car and then they drive you to the cabin. And so really like hardly anyone knows the exact location of where the lightning field is.
Which I gotta say, I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I feel like there's something kind of cool about this space that is so desolate that when you go there, you have an experience that people describe as sort of transcendent. And, you know, they say it is amazing to be just isolated in nature, and it wouldn't have the desired impact if you had busloads of tourists walking around.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it really bothers me when stuff is not accessible to the masses.
Yeah, when it's so exclusive. Yeah.
You know, I fundamentally feel like if you're making stuff for the public, it should be available to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yes, it is available if you can get the ticket. But I don't know. I don't like that. And I don't know what the solution would be. I guess we're just all about these philosophical, it should be like 2 a.m. in a sophomore dorm room right now as we're like, oh, what's the purpose of art? What's the meaning of all of this? But I think it's a part of it because that's the thing about minimalism is, you know, there's so little for us to look at. It's all about us, you know, thinking about these ideas and what the meaning is of these most bare elements.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think not to bring up another philosophical question, but you know, when Walter de Maria wants this artwork to be an immersive experience, he wants it to be a spot where you are, you know, becoming one with nature, really experiencing this in a particular way. When that experience changes, when you know you're experiencing it in a different way because all of these people are there, is it then the same artwork, or has the meaning of it changed if you are not out there able to contemplate nature, able to contemplate your space, your connection with this work? If those busloads of tourists are coming around, like, does that make it a different artwork then?
Yeah, I mean, it 100% would change the artwork. There's no way around that. Like, it's like asking, you know, would Kusama's Infinity Room have the same impact if it were a matte black wall? Like, it certainly would not. But I have a hard time. I have a hard time accepting stuff that is high profile, but only for a few. That
100%
like
fair.
it's meant to be experienced and cannot be recreated. And I don't know, maybe I'm part guilty on this because I am standing here talking about this work that let's face it, the vast majority of my listeners will never get to experience. And,
Right.
we're just hyping this great work. But I'm going to deflate it a little bit and let everyone know, despite the name, it's not about attracting lightning. There's not lightning strikes happening constantly. They call it lightning field, and obviously these metal posts may incidentally attract some lightning, but that's not central to the piece. So it's not as cool as it sounds.
But when the lightning does hit, it is very cool.
I'm sure it is, but when I first read the title, I imagined like walking into one of those like spheres, like those glass balls that you touch,
Yes.
and like the
Yes.
electricity goes flying all over the place. It's not that cool. It's just a big open space in New Mexico with a bunch of posts standing up from the ground, all the same height.
Yeah, when I teach about lightning field to my students, I do like to have them imagine, what happens when a lightning strikes and that electricity jumps from pole to pole across this entire thing. It's very rare, like you said, that actually happens, but when it does, very cool effect.
Yeah. And I guess, did you want to say anything more? Or should we just wrap it up?
I would just say that I'm very scared. I would be scared to stay in that little cabin if a lightning storm were actually happening like that. I don't know if I would survive that.
Well, the accounts that I've read, people talked about like they got there and it was well stocked with adult beverages. So they felt very comfortable with everything that was happening, and they said
Okay,
it was a
right.
delightful experience. I don't know if that was unique to their particular groups or just like that's the way they run it 24/7. I imagine it was just the people who I saw interviewed talking about their experiences. So I guess to wrap this up, oh man, we're just every segment doing a philosophical thing here. Where does this piece belong? Is this one for the Louvre? Is this one for the lab? Or is this one for the loo?
Okay, I was thinking about this, and well, first of all, it's not gonna fit in the Louvre, so that takes it out. But I really do feel like this. It sounds like a very well-funded adult science experiment. Like it sounds like a science fair project just taken to its most extreme, with a lot of budget. And so I'm gonna go ahead and say this belongs in the lab.
I get that. I totally do, but I'm trying not to be too snarky here, but it feels to me like it's somebody's idea of a science project when they've never really studied science. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes.
when you've been in art school and you start hearing people talk about democratizing and recontextualizing the decontextualized, and like the conjugation of nouns that happens, and there's word salad all over the place.
Yep.
This to me feels like the end result of that. This to me feels like, oh, we're going to rethink our connection to the natural environment by putting these man-made elements in that space, and then just have people walk around and contemplate the meaning of it all. And it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
It's
too
not
sober.
doing it for you.
Like it's just it's not landing for me. For those who do like it, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but for me, it is very much a piece for the loo. It is something that if you experience it and you enjoy it, great. But I don't need to know about it. I don't need to dwell on it. Like you can keep that one for yourself.
Fair.
But I do want to say, as much as this piece is maybe not my favorite, like I think this conversation was wonderful because you had me rethinking this stuff. And as I was trying to think of like, oh, how do I defend minimalism from, we've kind of gone back and forth on this. And I love having these higher level discussions about the philosophy behind art and what it means. And you are always very thoughtful on all things art. For listeners who aren't familiar, check out Art Ed Radio from the Art of Education University because it's always a great, insightful discussion.
Just one other thought, if I can throw that in here. I would encourage people to check out Walter de Maria's other work. If you're like Kyle and Lightning Field is not doing it for you, he's got other things that can be kind of interesting. I really like his piece that's called a vertical Earth kilometer.
Is that the one where he buried a post like a kilometer deep and it's just sticking up like an inch or two?
Oh, it's not even sticking up. It's even with the ground. All you see is like the end of the cylinder, and you just have to trust that cylinder is 1 kilometer long, buried into the earth. So yeah, I don't know. Again, that just kind of goes back to the philosophy of minimalism and what you're gonna do with that. But anyway, brings up a whole other discussion that we don't have time for. But I also like the broken kilometer, which he's done, and again, he's all about the math and the geometry and the precision. So I think there's 500 brass rods. They're all 2 meters long. So it makes up a kilometer. And then he's just got 5 rows of like 100 of them just laid out. And just like the epitome of minimalism, but a little bit of thought, a little bit of background behind it. So he's got a few other interesting things that I would encourage people to check out.
Yeah. And I will say, because I feel like we've done a little bit of, sort of dunking on minimalism throughout this episode. I do want to say for just the sake of sort of fairness, to give minimalism its due, a couple of things in favor of that movement and that style that I think people need to appreciate are when you revise things down and you get rid of specificity, it opens it up to more connections for people. It makes it more about the interpretation, what people are bringing to that piece. And so minimalist aesthetics create maximal connections in a lot of ways, right?
Very true.
And,
yep.
It's very hard to do that well in a way that is going to be thought-provoking. You have to be very deliberate about every element, both in the conceptual creation, but also when you're doing something that is so sort of simplified, every flaw becomes immediately apparent. So like I always tell my students, like when you're making a drawing, if you're choosing your subject, it is so much easier and more forgiving to draw the stuffed animal than it is to draw the cylinder, because any little flaw in like a soda can becomes very noticeable.
It is magnified.
It's not very forgiving. And so minimalism, while it may at first glance appear very easy, to be successful at it, I do think is legitimately hard.
I would agree with that. Quick counterpoint. It's still boring and I'm still okay if people are dunking on it.
I think that's a fair criticism. I think everyone's opinions, are valid, and I tend to hold that one. But I do want to also be fair to and share the good that can be seen and appreciated for those who are here for that sort of thing. Yeah,
for sure. There's a lot there. There's a lot that can be liked, but it's not for me, probably not for you, but no judgment on the people that do enjoy it or do appreciate it.
Yeah. And one thing that I do enjoy and appreciate is your show, Art Ed Radio from the Art of Ed University. And I do want to say I really also appreciate your taking the time. You've come on here so many times and it's always a wonderful conversation. So thank you once again, Tim Bogatz.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate such a smooth segue. That was just like you are a pro. So I thought that's why I always appreciate coming on. So thank you.
This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted, part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. If you found this tolerable, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week on social media at Who Arted Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course on the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.